Disclaimer, this is not going to be a super in-depth review of every facet of the Atelier Marie remake, which I shall henceforth refer to as Remake. I won't be going into whatever counts as major spoilers for a remake of a 26-year-old game from a niche series, or detail the relationship dynamics of each party member, or try and formulate an actual working formula for the Philosopher's Stone. This is just going to be the laid-back opinion of one person who plays the Atelier games probably too much after one playthrough, and whether or not I think it's worth picking up for those interested. Okay? Okay. The Remake is a remake of Atelier Marie, Alchemist of Salzburg, the very first game in a franchise that's been releasing a new mainline entry every single year since 1997 to just enough success to keep the company going. At least until Ryza came out and actually got them some decent attention for once. Thanks a ton, you filthy perverts. Hope you continue supporting the series, they could really use the sales. Now that they finally have a good chance, it seems like a good opportunity to remake the first game for modern audiences. This is actually one of the very few new games I've been looking forward to this year. Yes, I am that boring, because this is one of my favorite game series ever. Incidentally, if you'd like to hear me talk about some of the other Atelier games, earlier this year I started the long path of covering every single game released in English, beginning with the Iris trilogy. I won't be going back for a good while now, but stick around if you'd like to see the rest of that play out, and get the more in-depth jokey joke review of this game. Rather than giving an overall recommendation, I'd like to answer 3 questions here. Can I recommend it to longtime fans, newer fans, or as someone's first Atelier title? In this game, you play as Marlone, surname commonly known as Marie. She attends the famous Salzburg Magic Academy and is absolutely the dumbest person there. Out of the kindness of her heart, Marie's teacher offers her 5 years in her own workshop to develop her skills hands-on and create an amazing item to graduate. And this is all the plot you're really getting. It's also all the game really needs, since like most Atelier games, it's more of a cozy, lighthearted fantasy life sim than a traditional JRPG. It actually kind of points out this fact in the opening, where it says there are indeed super crazy monsters and exciting adventures to be had in this world, but only a few people are gonna actually do that, and most just go through their everyday lives. I thought that was kind of funny. Marie's everyday life consists of visiting locations to gather ingredients and fight monsters, going back to her atelier to use those ingredients for crafting items, and fulfilling tasks at the tavern, which are always just requests for certain ingredients or items. Really, I'm surprised how closely it reminds me of trilogies like Arland and even Mysterious to some extent, but it reminds me even more of Annie, since aside from the rather simplified synthesis and stripped back exploration and combat, there really isn't much going on in the town. There's a small handful of locations, no more than needed, 10 places to visit on the map, and a low stakes plot that gives you just enough of an excuse to go out and explore. Although I'm not sure I can say it's simplified or stripped back when we're talking about the actual first game in the franchise. That seems a bit odd. I will say some aspects feel a bit outdated and inconvenient, like figuring out where new locations and items are from town gossip and buying reference books, so maybe do a bit of research on how progress works beforehand. So yes, in case you couldn't tell, this remake of a game made in 1997 is much simpler than its 24th sequel we got earlier this year. Personally though, I really enjoyed the simpler implementation of these systems. Atelier has always been a standout among RPGs because they're just really cozy, and Marie is probably one of the most laid back I've played. I did play with the time limit, which you have the option to remove at the start of the game, but it wasn't much of a challenge. This game is really easy. In fact, starting about halfway through, I was passing Ingrid's midterm assignments as soon as I got them. With that in mind, I think removing the limit would make this game more enjoyable, but that's really something to try out on a second playthrough, or your first if you don't want to deal with it at all. Since your list of tasks to do is so short and low impact, you're free to take a generous amount of time exploring and synthesizing, and it's just pleasant to have Marie lock herself in her workshop for a month distilling water you need to make like 6 other things, or venturing out to new locations with your party members. It's a much shorter, snackier version of the Atelier formula that still has the charm and comfy atmosphere I like about the series. As for the characters themselves, they're okay, but still feel less developed than future games. They have an assorted range of personalities you uncover when witnessing random events or building up friendship through adventuring together, but I can't say they're very compelling or memorable. Maybe it's because I was playing on the timer and didn't have the time to indulge in their friendship events, who knows. I actually did get to spend a good amount of time with Kugel, Dougal, this gentlemanly older warrior with serious past regrets who would rather spend his days helping the next generation than wallowing in misery. Maybe the others are like that when you raise their friendship high enough, I'm not sure. I'd really like to see in an unlimited playthrough. I will say I at least like all their designs. They're pretty old-fashioned for obvious reasons, and I do love the more ornate and decorative looks in later entries, but the ones in Marie are very nice, and I've been giving these lovely character portraits to show them off. The presentation is easily one of my favorite things about the game. The chibi look makes it look like they're all Nendoroids, and it's just adorable. The environments clearly aren't trying to look super realistic. They also kind of look like toys, but they're bright and pleasant, and the water looks wonderful, so there isn't much I really have to complain about on that front. Marie looks adorable when she runs as well, so bonus points for that. Even the soundtrack, which seems to be smaller than other games, although that isn't really fair considering most games don't have near the OST track count of Atelier titles, is still great and one of the biggest contributing factors to the game's cozy feel. Overall, the Remake was exactly what I was hoping for, a smaller throwback without all the bells and whistles from more recent fare. Not to say those are bad, I still really love the newer games, but I was interested in seeing how I'd feel about such a simple entry where all the core elements are at their most basic. I wouldn't say it's in my top 5 for the series, but I did really enjoy my time with it. Now, to answer those questions from earlier. First, is it worth buying for longtime fans, those who have been with the series for a good long while? I mean, yeah, that goes without saying. I don't even know why I put this question here, since longtime Atelier fans probably already bought it and don't need to watch this video. Next, can I recommend this to newer fans who likely came into the series through Ryza or the Mysterious trilogy? Possibly. I'm not sure if it'd be an easy sell considering how Ryza is the most up-to-date and iterated upon example of the series formula. Saying you should go back to the actual first game in the series after that is like saying you should pick up a $1 pint of plain vanilla ice cream from the convenience store after you have a sundae from Serendipity 3. Still satisfying, and it has elements shared between them, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't asking the player to take a big step down. I'd say if you like the chilled vibe of Ryza, but wish it would focus more on idle exploration and item creation rather than the wacky combat, consider giving Marie a chance. Or if you know you like the general feel of the series and think you'd enjoy a smaller experience after the sheer indulgence of the newer trilogies, definitely pick up Remake. Finally, could I recommend Remake as someone's first? No, probably not. And it's for the reasons referenced throughout this video. Remake, despite being a game I enjoy to a great degree, is still a game made in 1997 that spawned a long-running franchise in its wake. It's in the very strange position of needing to compete so hard with its own series, and it's a losing battle on most fronts. If someone asked me, I'd like to get into Atelier, where should I start? I wouldn't say play Marie, because it really isn't representative of what the games are capable of nowadays. I'd just say to play Ryza or Sophie or whatever is the first entry in the most recent trilogy, because while Remake is not a bad game, the newer entries have the same general components, but bigger and grander and more chock full of content. However, if you're willing to look at Marie as a nearly separate experience from the mainline entries, I think it fares better in that light because it can be seen for its own merits rather than comparisons to its descendants. Then, if you really enjoyed what it has to offer, you can look at the current titles. So if you'd like to get into Atelier on the basis of what you can expect from it going forward, play Ryza. If you'd rather play this because it looks super cute and doesn't require as much time investment, try Remake. However, just because it doesn't require much time doesn't mean it takes much less money, which brings me to my only real issue with Remake, outside of like some items being really annoying to get, stupid random merchants. At time of recording, the base version of the game costs $50, while the deluxe edition costs $70. The deluxe edition does come with the first official translation of Atelier Marie Plus, the enhanced port of the original game made in 1998, but that's really just of interest to people like me who are pathetic enough to pay extra for that stuff. Now, I've never been a proponent of the idea that a game's quality should be proportionate to how long it is versus the money you spent. If that were true in any capacity, Ubisoft would be making the best games in the business right now, and that's certainly not the case in this reality. But my first playthrough of Remake, going in completely blind, only took me about 7 hours. 7 great hours, but still, I'll get more out of it when I replay it, but I do think it's worth mentioning since they're selling what's basically a fancy appetizer for just under the price of an entree. Yes, I am hungry. If time for money is something you're concerned about, I'm not sure how you'd like paying full price for this game if you aren't already a big Atelier fan, when for just $10 more, you can buy what's widely considered the best title in the series to date on nearly all digital storefronts. You'd get more content overall, but also just a better polished and expansive experience, and I think that's something to consider when it comes to purchasing anything. If they dropped the game's base price to maybe $40, it'd make it much easier to recommend, but they didn't. Thanks, Koei. Not a total deal breaker, but a bit of a deal bender at the very least. So, those are my thoughts on the Atelier Marie remake. I might have my issues with it, and I don't think I can confidently recommend it within the context of the franchise as a whole to newer or even first-time players, but I had a good time as someone who's loved this series for nearly a decade now, I think. Take that for what you will. I hope this helps. You have a nice day now.